Hi, Plus participants. Welcome back. So these next 3 lessons that we're going to do are animal investigations. So I love these investigations because you're bringing live animals into the classroom to show the students. And I'll have to tell you, my students, even the ones that are in their 20s and 30s now, when they contact me, they tell me they remember the animal investigations in my classroom, and they're thankful that they got to do fun things like this in the science class. So I hope you will do the same thing with your students, and hopefully you can teach life science when we're all back at school. So these lessons are adapted from this book, and it's called Classroom Critters and the Scientific Method, and it's by Sally Neidel. So she uses the scientific method, and I know we are using a lot of the science and engineering practices now, but I do think there is some validity to teaching students about the scientific method, about come up with a question and a hypothesis and testing that hypothesis and drawing conclusions. These are still important things to teach our students in science class. So I have created investigation sheets that you'll want to pass out to the students. And I also put these on my Promethean board, and I fill these out as we're doing this with the students. And the students turn them in as a completion grade. So as long as they have completed the entire sheet, okay, they get an A. The first one is called Goldfish Investigation, and if you can see, I've got my goldfish here, and goldfish, you can find them at PetSmart, any kind of Petco, any kind of pet supply place, and they're about 25 cents, very inexpensive. And I usually get 5 or 6 of them, and each group gets their own goldfish, and guess what? They're gonna name the goldfish. You know, they love to name the goldfish. So, another good thing to have when you are doing these investigations is a model. So here's a model, and you're going to get a model very similar to this. It's an inflatable goldfish. And this is a good thing to have because the kids can see it much easier, okay? And when you start talking about the characteristics of the goldfish, they can look at it, and it's much easier for them to come up with characteristics. So the first thing on the investigation sheet is we are going to classify this goldfish. So we do want to talk about the classification system. Again, we're going back to Carl Linnaeus, and we want to talk about which kingdom is this goldfish a part of. Well, it's part of the animal kingdom, and I'll write that up on the Promethean. The kids copy it down on their sheet. So after kingdom, we call the phylum, and I do use that word with the kids because they think it's cool that they're learning words that they generally don't learn until middle school. And the phylum is, and the Latin word is chordata, which means it has a backbone. It's a vertebrate, okay? So we have animal kingdom. This is a vertebrate because it has a backbone. And then finally, the class of vertebrate, of course, is fish. And that's as far as we classify it. So we do the kingdom, the phylum, and the class. Okay, and after that, we talk about the characteristics of the fish. So I show the fish to the kids and I say, okay, let's look at the fish. What are some characteristics that all fish have? Well, they're going to say, okay, they have fins and they have a tail. And I talk to the kids about the functions of each of the fins, helps them turn, helps them stop, helps them propel into the water. And I'm giving you this information. You will get this in your slides. And I give you a lot of background information about all of these animals that you're going to be doing investigations with. Okay, so the question that we're going to investigate with the fish is, do goldfish like to hide? Okay, so that's the question. Do goldfish like to hide? Now, the first thing I do when I ask that question is I poll the class. And I ask them, raise your hands if you think if a goldfish is in an aquarium full of water, if it's going to want to hide somewhere, okay? And then when the kids raise their hand, I write the number on the board. And then I say, okay, then the rest of you think that goldfish don't mind being out in the open. And some kids will say that. Then what you want to do is you want to ask some students in your room to kind of defend their answer. Why do you think goldfish like to hide? And why do you think goldfish don't want to hide? And you'll definitely have some kids that are going to give their opinions about it. Okay? Of course, in the scientific method, when we have a question, we always have a hypothesis. The hypothesis is what we think, okay, is going to happen. Okay? And it's usually an if-then statement. And the hypothesis for this investigation is, if given the choice to be in the open or in the shade, goldfish will prefer to, and the kids have to fill in that part, be in the open or be in the shade. Now, the one thing you want to talk to your kids about are hypotheses, because a lot of kids, when they get something wrong, they want to go back and they want to erase their hypothesis. So I tell the students up front, don't ever erase your hypothesis, because it doesn't matter whether it's correct or incorrect. And sometimes we learn more from what we get wrong than when we get right anyway. So we want to keep our hypothesis the same. So the next part is the procedure. And the procedure is, place a cloth on one half of the goldfish's container, tally the fish's position every 10 seconds for 2 minutes. So you're going to get some cloths, okay? You're going to use these year to year, and you want to show the kids where halfway in the container is, because they will argue about that. So halfway, and then, okay, once it's covered up, then what I do is I'm the timekeeper for this. I have done it lots of different ways, and I have found that students, I've given them timers before, and you can do that if you have timers, but it's just much easier now to have your own classroom timer, get your iPhone out, set the timer. So every 10 seconds, I say time very loud, and the kids have to look. Well, is the goldfish underneath the cloth, or is the goldfish out here in the open? If it's under the cloth, they have a table here, and they do tally marks. If it's in the shade, then they'll put a tally mark where it says shade. If it's in the open, they'll put a tally mark there. So again, every 10 seconds, teacher needs to say time, time. And every time you say time, the kids are going to put a tally mark, okay? And then once your timer has gone off, okay, you will have a total of 12 tally marks somewhere on your data table. And then we get class totals, and then we talk about the results. Well, if you have been paying attention to the goldfish, in my aquarium here, he has been underneath the cloth the entire time. And pretty much those are the results. I've been doing this investigation for like 15 years. That's pretty much the results. Every once in a while, we'll get one that will stay in the open. But for the most part, this investigation, the goldfish are going to want to stay under the cloth. And so I asked the kids, why do you think the goldfish wanted to stay underneath? And they will say, because they felt protected there. And then some students who have been fishing before, they will say, hey, when I go fishing with my dad, then they're usually in the shade, or a lot of times they're in tree, what am I trying to say? Underneath some sunken trees, they like to hide. And I asked them, well, why do they like to hide? Well, because they're hiding from predators, because they are tasty treats for other animals. So they want to protect themselves. So the conclusion at the very end, the students have to tell what happened and why they think that happened. And so the kids will say, our fish stayed in the shade for all 12 trials because it felt protected, or it was trying to hide from predators. So that would be an example of a good conclusion for this investigation. So I hope you enjoyed the goldfish investigation. I think your kids will too.